Good morning. I'd like to talk to you today about a subject matter that most of you will be familiar with. If this doesn't pertain to you, then I do beg your indulgence. Beer. Benjamin Franklin said, beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. And I do subscribe to that, even to today. Now I want you to think back to the time of your first drink of alcohol. By most account, it was beer. Remember the disgusting taste of the malts and the hops and think this can never replace my Mountain Dew, my Coke, or my Pepsi. Then you continue to drink enough beer that you actually acquired a taste for it, even after it dulled your taste buds. And by most accounts, to acquire that taste, you overdrank and caused you to get very dizzy and miserably sick. Nevertheless, you did not let that deter you from your now preferred drink, as it helped you relax, socialize, and made the world, in your eyes, much more appealing. Now, in my day, I drank what was common in the northern part of the country. Beer came from a tap, a can, and a bottle. My first experience came in a can where you had to have a church key to open it. Bottles were long necks, short stubbies, or whatever the maker decided to try to be different. Pabst Blue Ribbon, Stroh's, Iron City, Schlitz, and Hamm's are the brands that I tried. Cheap beers on an even cheaper budget. Perhaps you tried a variety of different brands that you were specific to your region. Lone Star and Shiner Bock from Texas, Saranac and Genesee Cream Ale from New York, or Rainier from the Pacific Northwest. Whatever you drank, you probably tried enough of it to help find that one brand that suited you most and became loyal to it. Now, after having acquired your taste for beer, American beer companies helped you decide on a brand by their advertising. Budweiser, the king of beers. Who wouldn't want to drink the king of beers? Old Milwaukee beer and fishing. When it was time to relax, we have the beer, Miller beer. Colt 45 and 2 zigzags, baby. That's what we're needing. What the heck were they selling, huh? Regardless, beer was advertised to help you become loyal to a brand and to keep you as a consumer. Now, before I go any further, let's talk about how beer became so popular in America. A common misconception is that the Europeans introduced beer to America. This is false, as beer has been brewed some fashion by the Native Americans for centuries. They brewed their beer using crops that were prevalent to their location: corn, honey, palm sap, wild plum, and pineapple. In the Southwest, they brewed using aloe, prickly pear, and saguaro cactus. Interesting varieties of ingredients were used to give Native Americans that polite buzz that they were looking for. The Europeans, specifically the German immigration in the second half of the 1800s, brought more than 1 million beer drinkers to America, and with them new kinds of yeast in brewing. They settled mostly in the north, and Milwaukee became, Milwaukee became a very large brewing area that eventually spread out to many of the surrounding states. The Germans produced a lager beer, which was light, crisp, and became very popular with the Americans, as they were used to drinking a heavy English-style ales. The Irish brought their style beers with them and made their own mark with heavier beers. Beer started out as a blue-collar worker drink with a chaser of whiskey and evolved into the preferred drink for on-campus parties. All the types of young social events, and over the years, beers became very uninteresting until around the 21st century, when craft breweries became all the craze. No longer a drink for the common person, craft beer evolved with different styles and tastes that moved to the mainstream, which was us. American made it very hip to drink craft beers. Lagers and ales make up the majority of the craft beers. These include a dizzy array of choices from local homegrown breweries based on color, flavor, and origin. So what makes a craft beer? Well, it has to have 4 ingredients: malts, hops, yeast, and water. Malt gives beer its flavor, aroma, and the color. Hops are used to preserve the beer and gives it its bitterness. Yeast is what turns it into alcohol and in the fermentation process. All mixed with water, it's the water and a lot more. Now, different kinds of yeast are used to make types of beer. The two main types are lager and ales. Lagers are lighter beers like Miller, Budweiser, but ales are what make up the majority of craft beers. So when you go into a craft brewery, you're going to probably find more ales. Red ales, pale ales, India pale ales, brown ales, porters, and stouts. Knowing what these look and taste like will give you some simple knowledge about craft beers. So in conclusion, the beers you are drinking today are not your father's beers, but hopefully your father is enjoying these new beers as well and with you. It seems our acquired taste for cheap beers has evolved into drinking craft brewers with higher cost. No longer those $2 beers, we're now drinking $5 and $6 beers. A popular television show in the 80s was called Cheers. This was set in a bar in Boston with two regulars named Cliff and his friend Norm. In one episode, Cliff explained the buffalo theory to his friend Norm. Well, you see, Norm, it's like this. A herd of buffalo can only move as fast as the slowest buffalo. And when the herd is hunted, it's the slowest and the weakest ones at the back that are killed first. This natural selection is good for the herd as a whole because the general speed and health of the whole group keeps improving by the regular killing of the weakest members. In much the same way, the human brain can only operate as fast as the slowest brain cells. Excessive intake of alcohol, as we know, kills brain cells, but naturally attacks the slowest and weakest brain cells first, and in this way, regular consumption of beer eliminates the weaker brain cells, making the brain a faster and more efficient machine. That's why you always feel smarter after a few beers. Bottoms up.